Okay, hello again. I guess this is part two. Excuse me. Um, so we've just covered the home page. Now we're going to move on to a generic site page, if you like. And the way that this can, I guess, be categorized is the About Our Villa in Orlando page is a site page. The prices page is also a site page. Let's see this one. The Winter Palms in Orlando is also a site page. So you can probably notice that they do have some of the same elements. For example, I mean, this here, from what we learned um, on the home page, is the page introduction, and we can see that that is also in place here and here as well. So they all follow the same kind of, excuse me, the same kind of structure. And they use different elements, but the key is that, or rather the aim was to be able to have different site pages, but to give you options in order to maybe switch things around and have things in different places so that not all the web pages look the same. You know, it just gave you a few different variations of layouts. So we'll we'll go through those. So I'm basically as I was with the home page in that I've got my back end here and I've got my front end here, but the page we'll look at will be about our villa in Orlando because this one sort of showcases all the different um, elements that you can have on a page at a single time. So again, much of it I think you'll remember from the home page because it is kind of very, very similar. So in terms of the back end, what we will do is we'll go exactly where we went before with the home page. So it's into pages, but rather than going to home this time, we want to go into about our villa in Orlando, which relates to this page. So if we click into that page, then we can see a layout which looks not too dissimilar from the home page that we were working on earlier. So we've got titles, we've got subheadings, and other extras here, which I will just go through and hopefully make a bit more clear for you. So basically, as before, you've got a title at the top about our villa in Orlando. So this clearly relates to what the page is actually called. So that will show here, and also it will display here as well in the menu. So the next bit is the page subheading. Now the subheading appears just beneath there. So information on our dream villa. You don't feel obliged to have a page introduction. I think it makes the page look a little neater if it has one. If you feel like the page doesn't need one, then by all means you don't have to type anything then in there at all. So in this case we have, and I think we should leave it there. It just gives users that little bit more information about what the page is kind of about. Okay, so further down, this is I guess an important one with in terms of the way things are laid out. One thing I would probably recommend is that most of the pages would have a sidebar, and this is just for navigation purposes. So basically what it means is that you can either add a right sidebar to the page, and by a sidebar, all it means is this area here. So the picture at the top, the navigation, the testimonial, all comes in a slim sidebar which positions itself on the right-hand side of the page. If we were to set this page to full width, what would happen is that this content here, being the page introduction, the image, and the content of the page, would all stretch right the way over here. and this content here in the sidebar would all be kind of pushed down to the bottom. So the only reason I would use full width page, the option's there. The only reason I would put it there is if you have big, bold images that you wanted to show off, in which case they would stretch to the full width of the page. In most cases, 90-95% of cases, the sidebar works well because you can showcase your images here, and you can also showcase your images, around here, and it just also gives ease of navigation on the side there. So I think it's much more versatile to have the right sidebar. So as we move down, we've got our page introduction, which again is very, very similar. It looks exactly the same as the home page. So that is positioned as the first block of text on the page, is the introduction. Just to kind of entice the user into reading a little bit more, something that catches the eye and makes them want to read on. And then the next section is the content middle. Now, this is a little different from the home page in that it works in this kind of table format. And what the table allows you to do is it's got a couple of rows in it, as you can see, and it's got different columns, one for body text, one for image, and one for how the image is positioned. So the content is straightforward. That will display the text as it has done here. So you've got your text there. I think a good way of looking at it is from, say, the top of this image all the way down to where it says valuables. Think of that as row 1 because it contains the image. It's positioned the image at the top. Now, what this basically means is that it will take this image and it will put it on top of the content here. If we change that to bottom, just so we can see. So now that I've changed it to bottom, when I refresh the page, the image will go from the top here, sitting on top of all this content, to just be in position below it. So if we refresh that, now it's basically just been thrown beneath it. So positioning the images like that on top and bottom is pretty straightforward. So we'll put that back on top because it looked a little better that way. So the second row here that we've got, row number 2 there, basically consists of this content here, which is the image that is upside down, I can see, and also the text that's next to it. Now, as you can see here, we've positioned the image to the left-hand side of the content, and all this basically means is that it will take the image and it will force the image over to the left-hand side, and it will bring any other content up to its right-hand side. And we just call that floating it to the left. So we float this image to the left, and all the content will just come over to the right-hand side of it, and that's what's happening here. So the image is upside down, unfortunately, and I think I explained that a little bit on our last phone call, was that it's just down to the way that you're taking the pictures on the iPhone is causing them to come out upside down. I've sent you an article about that quick, that might be able to help you guys out, and I'll certainly send that across again. But this is the way that the sort of content on the page works. It just works in rows, and that corresponds to these kind of rows here. So the imaging positions give you the versatility that I was talking about. On some pages you could have images positioned on the top and on the left. On the next page, the images could be positioned on the bottom or not at all. You might not want to put an image on the page. So it just gives you those options. So moving down, we have page images. So page images relate to these here. Now these here is just basically a slider, and obviously the dots correspond to how many images that you have put in the field. So I can see the 7 in there. There are 7 dots. It will automatically scroll through each picture. And if you want to see one a little bit bigger, then all you've got to do is click on the picture, like so. The navigation is not editable by yourself. This is almost like an echo of what you see at the top of the page, which is the main menu essentially, and it just gives the user that extra aid if they need to find their way around the site. So it's useful to have. Beneath that is a testimonial. Now, we touched on testimonials a little bit on the home page, and we saw how we can add them through going through content, publish, testimonials. Now, every testimonial that you publish gets put into the testimonial channel, we call it. It's basically a listing of all the testimonials that you've published. And those testimonials that you've published will appear here in a little list, if you like. This list will grow the more you publish. So I think I published a testimonial, then I deleted it. So we were left with 2 test quotes that I put in during the build phase. So as it stands, I have, say, 2 quotes to choose from. And on this occasion, I brought number 2. So what I'm doing is I'm just clicking and dragging that over to the right-hand side. And basically that means that I want to display quote 2 on this page. So if we refresh that, it is quote 2. The picture has moved back up to the top because I've changed its position to go back up to the top. And there is quote number 2, testimonial. Now, if I wanted to change this, if I say, not a fan of that quote, let's put another one in. All we've got to do is click and drag quote 2 back into the left-hand list. And let's drag quote 3 over to the right-hand side. Submit that, always submit. And if we refresh the page again, we have changed the testimonial that displays on that page. So that is pretty much the basics of the site pages themselves. The 4 boxes, again, I touched on this on the home video. This is exactly what you see on the home page. Nothing has changed. It is the exact same boxes, the exact same information. But if we go back into this page, there is nowhere on this page that you can edit those boxes. And as I mentioned, that's because that can only be done through the home page. So if you wanted to edit those boxes, as I mentioned, you would go into pages, you want to go into the home page because that's where they're controlled from, and they are right down the bottom here. So that's something to remember. Yeah, I mean that covers the basic sort of site page layout. I'll do another video which will cover some of the other kind of entries, such as like attractions and prices and blog and gallery and things like that. But for the time being, I think the home page and the site pages have been pretty much covered. And like I say, I'll send over the article again for this upside down thing. It's basically related to the fact that when you're taking a picture on your iPhone or your iPad, the orientation of the iPad is sometimes incorrect. So, I mean, for example, if you take a picture of something with your iPad at a landscape, it basically needs to be mirrored to be the other way if it's coming out upside down. I'm not very clued up about it. I'll resend the article and it will probably explain it a lot better than I can. But until then, I will leave this video as it is, and I will hopefully be able to clarify a bit more in the next video.